The Torah tells us how we were created. So it must be relevant. It must be necessary or useful to know how we were created, which is why we're told. So what are we told? We are told that man was created from dust, and the woman was created from the man. Or in simple terms, the man was created out of nothing, and the woman was created out of a living human being. It seems like that makes a huge difference. Because your origins, where you come from, has a huge influence on your personality, your psyche. So, getting right to the point, the male psyche has a memory of having been nothing. Which a woman's psyche does not have. And that's why men have a legitimate, healthy fear of turning out to be nothing. So if a man is treated like he's nothing, he could actually become a nothing. And anytime anything suggests or reminds him of that nothingness, he panics. His survival is at stake. Of course, his mental, psychic survival. And that's why men have a very fragile ego. Because it doesn't take much to make them feel like nothing. Because they suspect that they might be nothing, even without your help. Everybody knows the story about the man who came to Hillel and said, "Teach me the whole Torah while I stand on one foot." And Hillel said to him, "What is hateful to you, do not do to others." Now let me tell you the rest of that story. Hillel was not giving him a vague, open-ended message that needs to be interpreted. What is hateful to you, don't do to others. You hate chocolate? Don't let anybody eat chocolate. That's not what it means. In Hebrew, when it says, what is hateful, it's not a question. It's a description. That thing, you know what I'm talking about, that thing that you hate, don't do it to others. What is that thing? The thing that everyone hates is to be reminded that you're nothing. It's a male thing. Women don't have that. Because in a woman's psyche, there is no zero. You're either a 1 or you're a 10. But there's no zero. So although nobody wants to be a 1, but if you treat a woman like she's nothing, it simply doesn't compute. You treat a man like he's nothing, you can convince him. That's why if you treat a woman like she's nothing, she's puzzled. Like, what in the world's going on? You're treating me like I'm nothing? That doesn't compute. I'm not nothing. With a man, I always suspected I might be nothing, and now you're confirming it, and what am I going to do? If you're nothing, you're nothing. But it's a horrible feeling that you'll never understand. Being a zero is total annihilation. It's not an insult. I mean, it's much more than an insult. It's total annihilation. When you put down a man, you're destroying him. That's why men are so sensitive to criticism. Because every criticism reminds them of the ultimate criticism. So you say to a guy, you know, you're not so tall. So, okay, here goes. I know where this is leading. You start with not so tall, not so smart, not so important, not so necessary. You mean I'm nothing. I hate that. So no, I just said you weren't tall. So that's why men can't tolerate any criticism. See, this suspicion that men live with haunts them. It's not a conscious thought, but it's always there. That's called haunted. Men are haunted by this fear. It's a demon or a monster in their closet. And we spend a lot of time and a lot of energy keeping that closet closed. So it's very common that men will overcompensate to keep that door closed. So the whole macho thing and the whole bravado thing, it's basically to hide the fact that we're not less than you think we are, but that we're actually nothing at all. The funny thing is, no matter how many times women will tell men that they're not nothing, it doesn't make a dent. Because you can't undo a created condition. See, that's why men have this thing. We have this obsession, this fascination with anything that goes from 0 to 60. Or 0 to 30. 20? As long as it goes from 0 to something, that's for us. So a boy comes home from school and says, everybody hates me and everybody's picking on me. That's very different than if your daughter comes home and says, nobody loves me. Because when your daughter comes home and says, nobody loves me, she's like wondering how come. When your son comes home and says, nobody loves me, he knows why. And there's nothing he can do about it. The proof that all of this is true, if you need any proof, is not only how sensitive men are to criticism, but how positively men respond to compliments. It's totally disproportionate. You give a man a compliment, you've made his year. Even though it's not much of a compliment. So just as an example, if a wife says to her husband, did you change the light bulb? I didn't know you could change a light bulb. Every husband will say, oh, stop it, anybody can change a light bulb. But you've made his day. He goes off to work feeling like $1 million. But then he tries to return the favor. And the next morning he says to his wife, you made these eggs? I didn't know you knew how to make eggs. What would your reaction be? You wouldn't feel like $1 million for the rest of the day. You'd think, my God, what did I marry? You would say to him, you have fever or something? Are you feeling well? And then you won't make him eggs the next day. So why is that? Because turning in a light bulb is better than nothing. Being able to make eggs, that's not a 10. What is the worst thing you can say to a husband? Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. If he's turning in the light bulb and you say, it's okay, I can do that. It's like, oh, so you don't need me to turn in the light bulb. And you don't need me, do you? I'm totally useless. And to make matters worse, this has been our predicament for 5,700 years. In the last 70 years, you've made it so much worse because you really don't need us. Feminism has completely destroyed whatever hope we had left. So, if men's ultimate sensitivity is nothingness, zeroness, what is a woman's ultimate weakness, vulnerability? If a man was created from dust, his biggest fear is that he will be reduced back to dust. If you're created from a man, your biggest fear is disappearing into a man.
I totally agree.
Losing your identity to a man. So the Gemara says that a man should honor his wife more than himself because women are sensitive to injustice. The Gemara doesn't just make idle observations. I mean, who's not sensitive to injustice? Who wants to be treated unjustly? What it's saying is this: where men can't tolerate abuse because it makes them feel like nothing, a woman won't tolerate abuse because she can't take injustice. If a woman is not treated the way she thinks she deserves to be treated, she can't stand it. The injustice of it. Not the threat. She's not threatened, she's outraged. This is why women can be abused so easily and so regularly. An abused wife can stay in the abusive marriage for 50 years.
Why?
Because all she needs to do is find justification. As long as it's justified, then it's okay. It hurts, I got broken arm, broken leg, broken head, but it was deserved. It's okay.
How could she justify the abuse?
Well, obviously it's irrational. But as long as she can find justification, it's like, he broke my arm, but that's because I scratched the car. And she's willing to stay. And everybody else is thinking, you out of your mind? The man broke your arm. She says, yeah, but it's because I scratched the car. A man could not do that. Because he doesn't react with outrage, he reacts with fear of annihilation. He's got to save his life and get out of there. Whereas the woman doesn't feel like her existence is in danger. Because she's not a nothing. What about the lack of justice? Well, in each case she finds a justification so she can take it. Now, of course, justification is a very a very desperate argument, but it works for women, it won't work for men. This is why a man needs to accomplish. A man needs to acquire. A man needs to create change, to produce something, to fight a war and win. Because if not, then who needs him? Then he's nothing. That's why men are aggressive. Aggressive means the need to accomplish. Women don't have that aggression, because they don't have the need to prove anything. Instead, women are nurturers. Nurturing means I don't need to acquire anything. Just let me keep what I have. Let me be me. So the woman who goes out to work in order to feed her family, she's not trying to acquire anything. She's simply maintaining what's hers. That's called nurturing. This is also why men thrive on bad news. Because if there's something bad and I can fix it, that will prove that I'm useful. If nothing bad is happening, then... So if there's no war going on, let's start one. That's where there's that famous quote, men go to war because women are watching. Women, on the other hand, thrive when there's no war. When everything is good. Men don't understand that. Like, what are you so happy about? Nothing's happening. What do you mean nothing's happening? I'm me, you're you, we have this house, have our kids. Yeah, but nothing's happening. What are you so happy about? So we don't really know, we meaning men, we don't really know what it's like to be content. We're puzzled by your contentment. A man spends a year building a house, and they finally move in. And the wife says, "This is so nice." And the husband says, Yeah, but that side room needs... Oh, shut up. It's nice. We have a house. Let's live in it. Yeah, but I think maybe we should add another. Let go. Be content. Can't afford it. Now that the house is done, now you don't need me anymore. So I got to find something wrong with the house that I can still fix. Because I got to stay employed, understand? I need a job. What is it when a man says, I'm so useless? Hello? Hello? I feel so useless. But when a man says, I'm so useless, he's waiting for a response. If you don't say anything, it's like, hello? So if your husband says, I'm so stupid, and you say, yeah, I noticed.
Not every statement needs a comment.
But don't expect him to appreciate your agreement. Finally we agree on something. Let's continue on this journey. Because of these distinctions, men and women will never understand each other. Never. The distance, the difference is so vast. It is so much a part of the man's psyche, and it is so unfamiliar to women that no matter how much we talk about it, you don't get it. We're a different species. In modern language, men evolved from dust. Women evolved from a human being. Different species. That's why men and women will never get along. Men and women are not even good for each other. I mean, we all know this, we just don't want to admit it. A woman who has a man in her life is miserable. And a man who has a woman in his life. But here's what I'm saying. Men and women are really not good for each other. They should live in separate islands. Stay away from each other. Because it's nothing but trouble. Nothing but trouble. That's why God created marriage. Because marriage means a relationship between a husband and a wife, not a man and a woman. If the man who gets married doesn't become a husband, or the woman doesn't become a wife, then they're better off staying apart. A man and woman cannot be married to each other. So what's happening in the world today is that people get married and refuse to become husbands and wives. And that has become so accepted, or so acceptable, that if your husband is misbehaving, you're told. You're actually told. He's a man. You got to understand, that's men. And so I didn't marry to have a man in my life. I married to have a husband. And there's a huge difference between a husband and a man. There's a huge difference between a wife and a woman. The difference is so huge that we don't want to make the change. So following this thread, the difference between male and female, so on, let's look at the positive side. Man has this fear of annihilation and therefore needs to accomplish. But no matter how much he accomplishes, the ghost never goes away. The most successful, the most powerful, the most influential, the most wealthy men are just as paranoid. In fact, they become even more paranoid. Because after all this, I could still be a nothing? Well, then there's no hope. The positive side of that is that because men feel like there's a nothingness to them, they are motivated and driven to give. When they feel like they're giving something, they feel their existence is justified. So men need to be givers. Mashpia. A man marries a woman. The man is the breadwinner. The man is responsible. The man builds his home. Women, on the other hand, because they have no fear of annihilation, because they're not preoccupied with their own survival, are very available for others. So they are natural nurturers. Therefore, the woman doesn't need to give as much as she needs to receive. Because nurturing means confirming what is. So where a man needs a compliment that shows that he accomplished something, a woman needs appreciation, which shows that she is noticed. So therefore, the stupid compliments that men thrive on, a woman does not appreciate. So if the husband says, "I didn't know you could make eggs,"
What if he said the eggs are really good?
not helpful. But if he simply said, "Thank you," appreciation, not compliments. Of course, anybody would like a compliment, but you don't live for it. And the lack of compliment is not going to devastate you, but being taken for granted will. So not being appreciated, that goes against the grain. Because how can you treat a something as if it were a nothing? So I made you eggs. That's nothing? You just ignore it? It's not right. So women are nurturers, and therefore they are receptive, and men are aggressive, need to accomplish something to validate their existence, and that's why they are the givers.